Tatiana Rundek, Director of the Evelyn F. McKnight Brain Institute at the University of Miami, one of the only 4 institutes in the country funded by the gift from McKnight Brain Research Foundation. We are dedicated to uniting a diverse teams of scientists and clinicians to drive a cutting-edge research on age-related memory loss and cognitive impairment. We hope you'll find these talks informative and inspiring.
Hello, my name is Tiozzo. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation at University of Miami Miller School of Medicine. And today I'll cover fitness for life as part of Aging Like a Pro series of lectures. So a quick outline, what I want to cover and take you through is the differences between physical activity and exercise. 2 terms that are the same but yet different. Then we'll cover different components of fitness and body composition. Why is it important as we age to achieve and maintain a healthy body composition? We'll cover different types of exercise. They're part of our national guidelines. And we'll cover their distinct benefits as well. How much should we do? So the guidelines are very specific and very accurate what weekly amount we should cover for each of those. Do we do enough? And if no, why don't we do enough? And hopefully we'll leave you with some tips to do more and how to incorporate exercise into your daily regimen and activity. So basically the difference between physical activity and exercise is that physical activity is any kind of bodily movement that we do throughout a day, whether it's walking, taking stairs, gardening, doing house chores, versus exercise. It's more structured, it's more planned. It's typically what we say working out, basically going to the gym to lift weights, do yoga class, do a spinning class. So it typically also involves a higher intensity, so there's more exertion. So throughout the lecture, I'll use exercise, but when I say exercise, I probably mean both physical activity and exercise. And I have this map here of different blue zones. There's 5 different blue zones in the world. And there's actually a great documentary on Netflix if you want to check it on blue zones. So it basically covers these 5 specific areas. One is in Japan, one in Italy, one in Greece, then we have one in Costa Rica and one here in the United States. So the question is, why do people in those zones tend to live longer, and there's a higher rate of centenarians, people who reach the age of 100, than in other parts of those countries in the world? And what's very common about those blue zones as far as the individuals and how they live their life is that they're very, very physically active. So that's one of the common denominators for those blue zones. In Japan, for example, there's a lot of sitting on the floor as part of their daily rituals, whether it's to eat or to read. So there's simply a lot of squatting, sitting and standing. In Italy, for example, there's a lot of stairs that they're doing and a lot of steep streets. So in other words, all of those individuals in the blue zones, they're very, very physically active. The reason that I have this cover of Time magazine on the slide that basically says that, yes, exercise is beneficial, it's good for you, but it's probably not very effective when it comes to weight loss. So if anything, I think we need to send a message to people that exercise has so many other benefits. So weight loss should not be the only mean and the only reason why we should start exercising just simply for the sake of losing weight. Again, there's so many other health benefits that are coming from exercise, whether it's improving your blood pressure, your cholesterol numbers, lowering the risk of different diseases such as type 2 diabetes, cancer, cardiovascular disease, etc. So on this slide, we have different components of fitness. So on the left side, under health, if we work on these, if we improve them, they're going to translate into better health. So cardiovascular endurance, or simply cardio, doing some kind of, and I'll get into the specifics of each of these in the next few slides. Muscular strength, just simply becoming stronger, that translates into better health. flexibility or range of motion, body composition, and then we also have a muscular endurance, which is basically the combination of endurance and strength. We can design our workout session that targets both endurance and strength. Versus the ones on the other side under performance, and I'll list them: speed, power, agility, balance, and coordination. So they're more sports specific. So they're very important for athletes just to improve their performance, right? Agility would be something that's we can describe agility as ability to quickly change directions, right? So whether you have better or worse agility or better or worse coordination doesn't really necessarily translate into better or worse health. Versus, again, the ones under health, health components of fitness, they do translate into better health if we work on them and if we incorporate them into our daily or weekly routine. So this is just one example to emphasize that achieving and maintaining a healthy body composition is something that we should all strive towards. So a body mass index is a simple calculation that, typically when you go and see a physician, this body mass index number will be calculated. It's simply dividing our weight and height squared. And then each of us gets a number that puts us in a specific category, which can be underweight, healthy weight, or normal weight, overweight, and obese. Now, what this BMI index, again, it's a very simple way of, we get it in a simple way. It's quick and easy, doesn't cost any money, but it doesn't take into account our body composition, meaning what percent of our total weight is fat and what percent of our total weight is everything else, which is muscles, bones, organs, and connective tissue. And then here on the left side in this table, you have an example, again, something that I think we need to educate a general population about. If they do want to lose weight when they start exercising, technically what can happen is a person can start exercising. So let's say this male individual started exercising. His weight before a 3 month of exercising is 210 pounds. After he finishes exercising after 3 months, the weight is still the same, 210 pounds. So it's clearly the same weight, the same BMI, yet what may be happening during those 3 months, a body fat percentage goes down. It goes down from 30 to 27%. So in other words, this individual, even though this person has the same weight on a body scale, a body composition is improving, meaning there's less fat and more muscles in this individual, which clearly translates into a better health. And then we also have to keep in mind that we men and women, we tend to store extra weight in a different way. So we men tend to have this Apple or Android storage pattern. So any extra weight that we store, it's going to be stored likely in our abdomen, in our upper body. And this is the type of fat that we need to be mindful of. It's called visceral fat. So there are 3 different types of fat: visceral, subcutaneous, and intramuscular in our body. And visceral is the one that we really want to minimize. Why? Because it's stored in our belly, it surrounds our abdominal organs, and it's very metabolically active. It doesn't just sit there, but it also circulates in our body, which can negatively affect our blood pressure, our cholesterol numbers, our type 2 diabetes risk, etc. So that's the male pattern. And then the female pattern is a pear-shaped or gynoid storage pattern, so meaning women tend to be leaner in the upper body and then have a more rounded hips and thighs. So even though they may complain about that type of extra weight in the lower body, it's really not that detrimental for their health. And also something to keep in mind is with exercise, even though visceral fat is detrimental for our health, the good thing about exercise is that it's easier to lose it versus fat in the thighs and the hips, especially when it comes to women. Now we're getting into three different major categories of exercise. So the first one is endurance or aerobic or cardiorespiratory fitness. So there are different names for the same thing. So basically, it's the ability to do a rhythmic activity for a longer period of time. Some of the examples is walking, jogging, swimming, biking, rowing. So those would be typical cardio exercises that we can do. And then we'll get into specific benefits of that type of exercise. Then we have muscle strengthening or resistance exercise. So this one is basically designed to improve our strength, so to either build or preserve our muscle mass. And we really have these days a huge variety of equipment that we can use to do strengthening exercise, from free weights, machines, resistance bands, medicine balls, and even if you simply don't have any of that, you don't have access to the gym, you don't have any of this equipment, you can do resistance training simply by using your body weight. And then the third one is flexibility or stretching or range of motion. It's basically improving the range of motion in your joints, in your shoulders, in your knees, in your hips. So there are different types of stretching exercises, and yoga, for example, and Tai Chi can be very, very beneficial to promote flexibility. So there are specific benefits that if we do cardio exercise, there are specific benefits that we're getting from cardio that we cannot meet and get from a resistance training. So essentially what happens when we do cardio, we increase our VO2 max, something that's called maximal oxygen consumption. In other words, we have the ability to consume and utilize larger amount of oxygen for the purpose of exercising. So, and we do know that by increasing VO2 max, that translates into longevity, meaning we can add years to our life. We can live longer if we do exercise throughout our lifespan. And we also lower the risk of dying from any cause, whether it's cardiovascular disease or type 2 diabetes or cancer. So the risk of dying is also diminished if we do cardio and if we increase this VO2 max. We also know that if we improve our VO2 max, that translates into better cognitive outcomes. In other words, when you do cardio, there's not only increased blood flow in your body, but also to your brain. And then by increasing the blood flow in your brain, our brain releases something that's called BDNF, which stands for brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is a factor that's responsible, it's a protein responsible for neuroplasticity of our brain, meaning our brain can adapt and change in a positive way. And a good number of studies lately have shown that cardio exercise, more specifically, not just any type of exercise, but cardio exercise is the number one protective factor when it comes to against memory loss. So that's another specific benefit that's coming from cardio, which we don't see, at least not yet, that we can get, that it's coming from the resistance training. Then other benefits, for example, that are very specific to cardio is cardio improves something that's called pliability of blood vessels, meaning our arteries in our body have the ability to contract and expand, right? And as we age, and there are certain risk factors like smoking, they make our arteries more rigid, so they're not as pliable anymore. So what cardio does, it actually does the opposite. It improves that pliability, which is very beneficial for our heart and very beneficial for our blood pressure. Another response is cardio lowers inflammation. So people who carry extra weight, significant amount of extra weight, who are obese, they are also in a state of low-grade chronic inflammation, which is something that doesn't sound good and healthy. So basically, their body releases inflammatory markers into the system. So by doing cardio, even if those individuals are not losing weight, that inflammatory response gets reduced. And then not only that with cardio we strengthen our heart and lungs, we also do certain changes or changes are happening in our muscles. So what's happening in our muscles, more capillaries are being built, meaning more blood can go into our muscles. And we also create our cells. They create more and bigger mitochondria, which is basically a part of our cells where energy is being produced. So in other words, we just have more energy and we can exercise for a longer time or at a higher intensity. When it comes to specific benefits of resistance training, one of the largest benefit of the resistance training is that we can improve bone density. So there's a lower risk of osteopenia and osteoporosis, meaning risk of fractures or bone fractures. We also know that people that do strength training, especially elderly with more strength and power in their legs, they have better balance, they're less likely to fall, and as a result, even if they are at risk of falling, when they do fall, they're less likely to break bones because again their bones are just healthier and denser. As we age, there's something very specific that's happening with our body, and people oftentimes may say, oh, as I become older, it's easier to gain weight, but it's harder to lose it. So the reason that's happening is because as we age, roughly after the age of 30, our body starts releasing less testosterone. As a result, we start losing muscle mass. Roughly after the age of 30, we lose on average about 5% of our muscles per decade. It's not per year, it's per decade. As a result of losing that muscle mass, our metabolism slows down. Why? Because every pound of our muscles needs more energy than equivalent amount of fat. So by doing strength training as we age, we're actually have the ability to preserve that muscle mass and to keep our metabolism increased, which again, it's only beneficial for our health. And then the last point is, in direct comparison to cardio exercise, resistance training is actually more beneficial in improving insulin sensitivity and glucose control for people that have diabetes or to lower the risk of type 2 diabetes. So again, resistance training there is more beneficial, more potent than cardio. Ideally, if you combine both, you get overall greater benefits, but in direct comparison, resistance training is more effective. And then we have flexibility with, again, another set of specific benefits. It can happen as we age. Again, you try to do certain daily movements. You try to reach for something in your cabinet, in your kitchen, or for something in the back seat of your car, and all of a sudden you feel a tightness in your shoulder, maybe even discomfort, maybe even pain, which can indicate, again, not a good range of motion in your shoulder. So simply by keeping your joints not only flexible but also strong, we want to make sure that our joints have strong muscles around them, and then that we also have a good range of motion. We can alleviate the discomfort or maybe completely fix it and resolve it. And obviously with today's lifestyle, there's a lot of sitting, there's a lot of slouching. Maybe as I lecture more and more, maybe I'm slouching more and more. So flexibility helps that. It helps achieve better posture. And there are studies also showing if you do flexibility, even without strength training, you actually can become stronger. And then just overall, the risk of injury is lower if we improve flexibility and range of motion in our body. So how much should we do? So the guidelines are very specific. So for cardio exercise, we should do 150 minutes of moderate intensity per week. Moderate intensity is considered something that doesn't require too much exertion. Let's say if you do something at moderate intensity, you can carry a conversation without any issues. So this translates into 30 minutes of exercise, we say most days of the week. Even, for example, if you don't have time, and again, we're all busy these days, there's a lot that we want to do on any given day. So let's say if you don't have 30 minutes to do, if you do 3 times 10-minute sessions throughout the day, the benefits are the same, as long as you accumulate those 30 minutes a day. You can get away with less than 150, but for example, do 75 minutes, but in that case, it has to be a vigorous intensity, right? So if you want to get away with less, you need to do a higher intensity. Sometimes we use steps. We tell people it's very quantifiable. So we tell people to try to achieve 10,000 steps a day. So the idea is if people achieve that, they will meet those 150 minutes of moderate intensity per week. And then another recommendation I sometimes say to people is you should probably exercise on each day that ends with Y. And then people start in their head, okay, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So it's pretty much every day. So we should aim to be physically active every day. When it comes to resistance exercise, the guidelines are saying we should do at least 2 sessions per week targeting major muscle groups. And the same thing for flexibility exercise, at least 2 times per week targeting major muscle groups. Now, again, this all can look and sound very intimidating. You know, when we say you should do cardio almost every day, resistance training twice a week, flexibility twice a week. But if you have knowledge or if you can get creative, you can actually create a workout session where you target both cardio, resistance training, and flexibility in one session. So you don't necessarily have to do multiple sessions to meet those guidelines. More specifically, when it comes to brain health, we cover this, and just to emphasize that increased blood flow to the brain with cardio is very beneficial for the brain. It promotes neuroplasticity. There's, for example, this a quote or statement that says, people who engage in regular physical activity, including walking, had a 17% lower chance of developing dementia than those who were not active often enough. And I think it's really important to emphasize that it's never too late to start. So even if you don't consider yourself athletic, you didn't do exercise when you were younger, again, it's never too late to start. You still get those benefits whenever you start. And another thing that's important to point out, even if you're not, for example, at least initially meeting those guidelines, 150 minutes per week or 10,000 steps a day, just please keep in mind that any amount is better than no amount, than nothing. So 50 minutes a week is better than 0 minutes a week. So again, anything is better than nothing. So where are we currently when it comes to meeting those guidelines that we covered? 1 in 2 adults do not meet guidelines for cardio activity, those 150 minutes per week. Less of us meet muscle strengthening guidelines, which is 2 sessions per week. And then when it comes to both, combining both, that percentage is even lower. Fortunately, these numbers are trending up. They are becoming better with each report, but we still have ways to go to educate people about being physically active and educating them and motivating them. So I'll get into some of the reasons why we don't exercise enough, and then hopefully leave you with some useful tips how to increase that physical activity level. There's a lack of education that clearly does exist. So we're not educating people about how much they should exercise or give them more knowledge about exercise. So we know that 1 in 10 US adults are reporting not being aware of those guidelines. And then only 3% can actually list those guidelines for cardio exercise. And from the previous studies, we do know that if we don't promote healthy lifestyle, it's less likely to happen in the general population. So unfortunately, a lot of our information is coming on TV and in print from something that's called direct to consumer advertising. So it's basically marketing and advertising pharmaceutical drugs, which again, they do have their benefits, but they're clearly not designed to promote a healthy lifestyle. And then most of our food advertising, when it comes to that part, healthy eating, is coming from mostly fast food commercials. So there's a saying that if you want to eat healthy, don't eat what's advertised on TV. Again, there's not enough healthy eating commercials also available on TV and in print. Another reason why we're not physically active is because of the environment where we live in. So our cities, our neighborhoods, they're really not designed for us to be physically active. So when we compare ourselves to other developed countries, we're not doing well when it comes to the amounts of, for example, the average amount of miles that we drive per day, right? So our numbers are higher than in any other country. Our reliance on cars is again higher than in any other country. We tend to use less public transportation than other countries as well. And the idea is if you're not using public transportation, you are even less physically active. So there's this statement that it does resonate with me, and I'll just simply read it. Daily, each hour spent driving is associated with a 6% increase, and each kilometer walked with a 5% decrease of becoming obese. So the way, again, our environment is built, we basically have to find a way to break out of our habits to make ourselves more physically active, whether that means parking your car further away from a restaurant that you're going to or mall, or taking stairs, intentionally taking stairs instead of escalators and elevators. So again, finding ways to become more physically active on a day-to-day basis, which ultimately does result in more steps, more minutes of physical activity, and just overall better health. There's another component, again, obesity and physical inactivity is a very complex issue. It cannot be just fixed with one item. So social environment, there's this series of studies that study something that's called 3 degrees of influence. So we do know that if we're happy, our friend is more likely to be happy as a result, our friend's friend, and then after those 3 degrees, friend's friend, that effect pretty much ends. They've done studies in smoking as well. If we stop smoking, our friend and friend's friend and friend's friend is more likely to stop smoking. So they also did a study on weight gain. They wanted to see who from our social circle, if that person is obese, who from our social circle is more has the highest influence on us potentially becoming an obese person. So they concluded it's a close friend of the same sex. That effect from our social network of us of potentially becoming obese is the largest. So it's even greater than when it comes to our siblings or spouses or our neighbors. So basically, this series of studies concludes that obesity is potentially socially contagious. Another reason why we don't do more physical activity and exercise is a lack of motivation or competing interests, if you will. So there's always, or typically, too many things that we want to accomplish on any given day, and if we leave exercise for the end of a day, if we have enough time, that's when we potentially get in trouble by not doing it. So I'll start getting into some tips, hopefully useful tips to encourage you or motivate you to do more. First and foremost, I think it's important to check your health before you start more intense exercise. Why? Because if we're just simply walking, we can be fine, but when we start exerting ourselves more at the higher intensity, we can start experiencing certain symptoms. So it's really important that you get a clearance from your physician, and also periodically check your health as you exercise. When it comes to what may work best to increase your adherence to exercise, it's really 2 things. Find something that's enjoyable to you, whatever that is. Is it walking? Is it cycling? Is it gardening, hiking? whatever you prefer. If it's enjoyable to you, you're more likely to do it and stick to that routine. We also know that if you do exercise in a specific time of a day, right? So we get up in the morning, we have coffee. Those of us who love coffee, that's the first thing that we do. In the afternoon, we may take a nap if you have a luxury to take a nap. So that's our routine, right? Before we go to bed, we brush our teeth. So it's really important to incorporate exercise into that daily routine. So this is a specific time of a day when I'm going to do my exercise. And we also do know that those that do morning exercise, they are more likely to incorporate that into their daily life. So morning seems to work better than afternoon or evening as far as that adherence. And another thing is that I included it here, and I call it Newton's first law of motion, which is modified, and basically it reads: a body on a couch likes to stay on a couch. So let's say you're on a couch, you have a TV remote in your hand, and you just really want to stay on that couch, even though you know that you should go out and maybe exercise and get physically active. But then a body in motion likes to stay in motion. So if we manage to do that transition from a couch to leaving our house, leaving our apartment, and doing some kind of exercise that we enjoy, our body actually likes to stay in motion, likes to be physically active, and at the end of the day, we're glad that we did it. We just have to overcome that hurdle of getting off the couch, leaving maybe our apartment to go and exercise. And then again, what I mentioned before, break your own habits to move more. Whether, we don't necessarily have to park our car right at the entrance of a restaurant or a mall or a store where we're going. Just park somewhere far, just to force yourself to move more, to do more steps most of the days or every single day. Take stairs, intentionally take stairs versus escalators, elevators, etc. And then I think it's also important to set goals that we have for ourselves. So a long-term goal can be, in 1 year from now, this is what I want to achieve, X, Y. Some people, their goal may be to complete, let's say, a 5K walkathon. Or some people may say, I just want to exercise to, lose 10 pounds in a year from now, get more energy. Whatever your goals are, make sure that you have them. And then it's also important to reinforce that long-term goal with maybe a monthly short-term goals, just to make sure that you're on the right track to accomplish what you want to accomplish maybe in a year from now. But then again, find something that's enjoyable to you and try to dedicate a specific time of a day for that type of movement and exercise. So that would be all from me. These are some of the useful resources that you can use. They're coming from the American College of Sports Medicine, and then also from our Evelyn McKnight Brain Institute. And I hope this lecture was enjoyable and useful, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for watching. Thank you to all the participants who have come to our lectures. Thank you to our partners. And most of all, thank you to our sponsors. See you next time. Keep aging like a pro.